So the book that I'm talking about today is Don't Turn Around by Michelle Gagan? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. And this book came out in 2012. This was actually on my reading list of books to read when I was younger. I saw the cover and I was like, that looks really cool. It was about a girl who got off the grid and pretty much was hiding from the government. Don't Turn Around, basically it is about a girl. Her name is Noah and she is an orphan. She pretty much has escaped the orphanage that she was originally at a bunch of times, and so she basically has been escaping from, you know, foster homes. I think she's 15 or 16, but she's also a hacker and a part of like these group forums, and instantly introduced to this concept at the moment is she wakes up in a hospital like room place where she is pretty much on a stretcher with all these needles in her arms and legs, and she just wakes up in this area not knowing where she is, and we don't really get an explanation about that until a little bit later on. And I love the fact that this book did this. I thought it was so cool and so ingenious. You put a character in a situation where you don't know what's going on, the character doesn't know what's going on, and it's there, and then you start to discover what's happening. So basically she was being probed. They were telling her, oh no, it's a hospital, you were in an accident, blah blah blah. Turns out she was on a ship, and then I believe she gets help from some other fellow hackers who managed to get her out, but for the most part it's her that's doing it. So it says that she meets a kid named Peter. He needs a job. He posts it on a forum on the internet, on like the dark web I believe. He needs a job for her to just like crack into this system for a company that has been keeping tabs on him, and he pays her like I think $500 or $600 or something like that. Pretty much it's them kind of getting into these weird shenanigans. By the end of it, they kind of pretty much become off the grid for the most part. Noah, she ends up finding another person on the forum called Zeke, and he goes by A6M. He was from a foster home that she remembers being with him, and he basically helps her get out of situations. Pretty much just a bunch of antics of them being off the grid. That is pretty much it in a nutshell. So like I said, I picked this book when I was really young, and it's been on my reading list for so long. Okay, I thought, okay, well, I'm in this book club and I have to pick a book, and I don't know what book to read because all of the books that I have on my book reading list on Goodreads, they're all series and collections, and none of them are like standalones except for like maybe a few, and most of the few that are standalones, they're more so like literature novels that nobody wants to read, because that's another rule within our book club, was that no complicated stories. I wish I had read this series when I was very young. I'm 21, okay? This book series is not really meant, I mean, you could read it if you wanted to, if you had spare free time. I'm pretty sure majority of my family members who are way older than me, they probably read this book and were thinking, what the heck did you pick? One of my relatives texted me and she's like, this is something you would pick, and I'm like, I don't even really totally like this book, and I'm sorry if like some people really love this book. I don't personally like it. I think it's just because I'm a little bit older and I've read so many works. I'm also in college and I've read a lot of classical literature and really well literature, and I've read other people's work within my own English classes, and I personally love that. Reading this book brought me back to like middle school days, and that's not a bad thing. It's just it was so hard to read this book in the beginning, and the tone, I guess it was the point of view that I didn't really like. There was a lot of that phrase that we use in English, show don't tell. There was a lot of not that, like there was not that much of that in the beginning. It was like, Noah did this and Noah did that, and like this is what she's thinking about, and then I was kind of, I don't know, like it's so action packed that I didn't really feel like I was being involved in the story, if that makes sense. Especially in the beginning when you're like thrown into the situation of like, oh, she's on a stretcher, she doesn't know where she is, and she's just kind of being experimented on. And I love that idea. There are so many action-packed movies that do that, but you see through their eyes, and this isn't being shown through her eyes, it's through a different person, which I understand because the story does change point of view between her and Peter, but I personally wasn't really invested in the beginning to begin with. And I thought I was, because honestly I've wanted to read this book for a long time. My other thing that I really had an issue with, I guess, with this book, and I don't want to hate on this book because there were some good things. Like, I love the fact that like we just get jumped right into it, where like she's on a boat and she's being experimented on, and like later on it talking about like, because the whole thing was about how they were experimenting on a bunch of orphans who basically could help them fight a disease. I feel like maybe this is not a good review to do during this time. There's this disease and I cannot remember what the disease is called, and it has to do, I think, with their appendix or their thyroid. I can't remember. It's one of those two. It's something of that sort. And so basically they're experimenting on them to make sure to see if they can cure this illness. It turns out that Peter had a brother and his brother died from that, and I think that's such a great backstory for this otherwise kind of whole douchebag type of personality. I don't know, maybe that's just me, I'm getting that from him, because other than that he doesn't have a lot of redeeming like characteristics. I mean, he's really rich, and he's also really great at, you know, technology. I mean, sorry, and then the fact that like she's the cure, which I mean, of course she's the cure, but honest to God, I didn't really think that this was going to be more dystopian type of playing, even though it's not dystopian type, but the fact that like, oh, she's the cure kind of makes you think dystopian, like, oh my god, she's special, or he's special, and they have powers, and I understand that like it's not dystopian and it's not like that. It's not like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, but I get that feeling from this character, like, oh my god, she's the one, she's special, because we've experimented on her, and we don't find that out until later on, even though it's kind of easy to predict. But I think it's really cool, like you're kind of doing like modern day, they're the special one kind of person, but with sci-fi and like, you know, agents and FBI. I mean, like, I still don't kind of completely understand who these FBI agent people are. I mean, I understand that they're like trying to do what's right for the world, but at the same time it kind of just seems like they're really being shady about it. So I was really confused, but I thought it was a cool idea, that the fact that like, oh, they're experimenting on orphans. But I think that's a cool, ingenious way of doing for the story, because like, oh, they're orphans, like they kind of make it seem like nobody's gonna care about them if they go missing or whatever. One character I did really love in this series was Cody. Cody was actually older than Peter, and he was the friend of Peter's brother, and he was a med student in college. And the whole arrangement of how they were trying to figure out what was going on, and he could probably help them, and this and this and this and this, and I thought that was such a great breaking point. I don't remember and I can't recall, but I believe he did die. They pretty much were like infiltrating the company, whatever, and then pretty much they were trying to get out, and an explosion happened. Peter was there. I believe Cody was either there or they jumped him at his own apartment or something like that. I can't remember, but I believe they did capture Cody, and he did die by the end of it, because I remember Peter being very devastated and being told that he died. And then he was told that Noah died, but she really didn't die. They were just keeping her secret. When that whole exchange happened between Cody, Noah, and Peter, like when they were in their apartment, and how the two of them were taking care of Cody's kid, I thought was so sweet. That was like one of my favorite other scenes within the whole entire story. It was just really adorable. And I mean, I can tell that the book is trying, like the series is gonna be like, oh, these two are gonna end up together and they're gonna be, you know, perfect, because, you know, every young adult book is gonna be like that. So, and then the whole scene of like how Peter was being lied to, that Cody died and Noah died. I don't know if Cody is really dead, but I know that Noah's not really dead. And I think personally, like that whole fight sequence thing at the end, I kind of really didn't pay attention to it very much. I mean, I was a little bit confused here and there, and I know that the one friend that Noah meets on the internet, the other guy, Zeke, ends up rescuing her. He actually helps her a lot within the novel, and I kind of actually like him a lot more than Peter, surprisingly, even though I can tell that the book is trying to make Peter and Noah become a couple probably by the end of this, but I kind of actually like her more with Zeke. I don't know, he's more like caring, plus he also has a similar backstory to her, and he helps her within these missions that her and Peter end up, you know, being on the streets together and whatnot, and he seems like he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, that was only one instance in the whole entire book, and every other time Zeke has been there to help her. Also, the college sequence, I kind of understand why the college sequence was in there. It was because, you know, Peter broke up with his girlfriend Amanda and this and this and this. But those two breaking up and then getting back together, kind of like being like friends again, kind of just seems forced in a weird way. Like, oh, like I liked you a lot, but then, you know, like I moved to college and I want to experiment, which I mean, like everybody wants to do that. I'm fine with that. But then he's just pretty much by the end of it like, I'll date you again because Noah's not here anymore, and I think she's dead. I think they're a cute couple, don't get me wrong, like I think they're meant for each other. I don't know, that relationship wasn't really like beneficial to the story. I know it's probably there to like maybe make readers think, oh my god, I don't like Amanda because, you know, she's getting in the way of the relationship and this and this and this, because, you know, there's always one of those characters in a lot of series where, like, you know, there's a not a love triangle, but there's like a love relationship, like the main love relationship, but they can't be together because of other things, and the only reason why they can't be together in the story is because Amanda's here, and then Zach comes in, and I actually want Zach and Noah to be together, even though I'm probably never going to read the rest of these books. I understand like why the college sequence thing happened was because, oh, well, like that's how both Noah and Peter end up coming together again, because they both end up at the college. But like at the same time, like it was just kind of weird, I don't know. And then there was a point where like Peter just gets kicked out of his home and this and this and this, and like he ends up staying at Amanda's like little, like, you know, hovel of a dorm room, which I want to know how that works, because dorm rooms are very, very, very small, okay? Beds are very small. So you're talking about two people that, I mean, you can make it work, don't get me wrong, but it's not very comfortable. Somebody's gonna end up on the floor by the end of it, or pushed up against the wall. So one other part that I really loved about the book was when Noah was stuck in the, I believe it was not a broom closet, no, she was stuck in a like study room with another guy who was on the college campus, and like she pretty much just like put her hand against his mouth and was like, shut up, because somebody was following her. And like the whole sequence with her like trying to get into the, you know, building with like, you know, the guy that was following her and whatever, I thought that was kind of weird, because like she's telling this guy, hey, he's following me. Like even if she didn't go to the campus, she's a young girl, and then there's this random guy who's just following her. Why nobody would step in and wouldn't just be like, yeah, I'm calling the police, you can't be here. There were moments like that that really bothered me. I loved the sequence with her being stuck in the study room with this random college student, and how he's pretty much hitting on her, and it was something that I could see actually happening, which was another scene that I did actually like. Okay, so a few things that I don't personally liked about the story, which I don't think I'm gonna read the rest of the series, which is very surprising because normally I love finishing book series. No matter what, no matter how bad it is, I will finish it. And I think I just have to get out of that rut, because I can't do that with this book series. I think it was just the way it was told that I didn't like, and then there were certain things that I was like, I don't know if that would be possible. Like, so the whole thing of like how she kept running away and this and this and this, I don't know how old she is. If she's 18, then yeah, she doesn't have to be in this, you know, foster care. system anymore, but I assume that she isn't because she still keeps running away and she still keeps getting captured. But at the same time, she has managed to have her own unlimited funds of money to pay for stuff and still have an apartment. But yet she's really, really young. And to be honest, when I was 16, I couldn't even like be on my own for a week and a half, and I still got caught. I don't know, like things like that kind of didn't add up. Like, I understand that like she was doing these jobs, but at the same time, like nobody suspected her. Like, I don't know. It was really weird. Like, I didn't kind of totally believe that she had this amount of money just sitting in a bank somewhere. Didn't really like Peter's personality. He just kind of seemed like a jerk. Like, he just seemed like a jerk, to be honest. Amanda wasn't really like, she wasn't a horrible character, but she also really wasn't developed. She was just like that nurturing type of person. And she was like, oh, like I will do this, but like I don't really like you and I want to explore my options, but you can stay. Noah, she was okay, but like she wasn't empowering. She was just there. Like, I felt like I was reading like a regular character who didn't really have a lot of like interesting traits and who wasn't really special. She was like, I mean, like I understand her backstory and I appreciate that, don't get me wrong, but like she just seemed like she didn't care about being in any of these situations. Like when she was helping out Peter, she was just like, okay, whatever, see you. Like, the character felt like she didn't even want to be in her own book. That's how weird it was. There were moments where I was reading and I was like, okay, and here's the weird part, the weird part. When you're jumping from each character, when you're reading through her kind of POV within the book, she seems like she has all these thoughts and ideas and she kind of almost seems complex, but at the same time she seems like, oh, like I don't have, like I'm having an attitude towards you. Like, her attitude was kind of really weird. I don't know if it's just me, but like she seemed like she had like a negative attitude towards everything, but then at the same time she also seemed like, oh, like I don't really care what's happening, what's going on. I'm kind of concerned, but kind of not. Like, she was flat. She was a flat character, but also had these really weird dimensions to her. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. Funny thing is that when you jump to Peter's POV, the way he sees her, like the way she acts, will be in the exact same scene, because some books do this where it's like, oh, you're on the POV of the main character and then you jump to the other character and you see how the story plays in their head in the same scene. There were a few times that were like that, and like she'll act a certain way in her POV and then skip to his POV in the same moment at the same time. It's just portrayed completely different. Like, she'll say something, but then it's said the same time in a different section and it just sounds different. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, she sounds very bland in one moment and she sounds like a negative person, but then when Peter sees her, she just sounds like this like kind of bratty, like just regular teenage girl. Like, I don't care. Oh, okay. Like she's happy, but like negative happy. Does that make sense? But then in her own POV, she's just like, I don't care. Felt like her personality. Maybe it's because like the book was trying to like make it seem like, oh, well, like you perceive things differently than everybody else perceives things in the world. So if you say something to somebody, they might perceive it differently, and blah, blah, blah. That is how I would explain her character, and that's kind of why I didn't really like her. The only like things that I really liked were like those few scenes that I talked about in Cody and Zach, who those two characters aren't even major characters and they just seemed more interesting. Like, Cody had a kid and he's in college and he's a med student, and I'm more interested in that than the main character who's immune to this horrible illness, where everybody else dies, and she's a hacker and this and this and this, and she's an orphan, and I'm more interested in the med student. Like, that, I don't know if anybody else who's read this book got that. And I liked Zach more too, even though he pretty much had the same backstory as Noah. I don't know, that's just personally me. And I feel like this book is gonna get outdated at some point. I mean, it was made in 2012, but I feel like a lot of the references that are in there are gonna be outdated at some point or another. I don't think I'm gonna read the rest of the books in this series, even though I really wanted to read this book when I was younger, and I probably should have. To begin with, I didn't feel like I was diving into the book. Like, I didn't feel like the book was pulling me in to read it. Like, I just felt like I was just reading it, like as if it was like a class assignment. And reading should never feel that. I do think it's special and I do think it's unique, and I think like the story could be really, really great. Maybe it's not geared towards me, but I don't think it's a horrible book. I've read really horrible books before, and maybe one day I will do reviews on them. I don't think I'm gonna be reading this book series after this book. I think it was okay, and if you like sci-fi-esque type of novels, you might like this more in present day. And I think it's an okay story. I think it's just like, I'm just older. It was just also really predictable, and like the only moments that I actually liked were those funny moments that I talked about, or like those sympathetic moments that I talked about. Like, if you want to go read this book, go read this book by all means. Like, this is just my personal opinion on the book, and I just don't think I would read the rest of the series. I think I would probably give it like a 2.5 stars on Goodreads. That's the end of my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see all you guys in the next video. Bye.